Thus far, I've introduced you to the buyer's journey. I've also introduced the core concepts of persuasion as taught by Aristotle. Turns out these two are tied together. I like to say they are married together. And you need to understand this and learn this because it'll drastically help you as you walk through your sales presentation, as you build out your slide deck. You need to know this. Let's walk through it. First of all, if you are dealing with somebody that is in the awareness mode, and it could be a person, it could be a number of people, it could be a company. If they are in the awareness phase of the buyer's journey, you should be going for credibility. You should be introducing yourself and going through credibility, that concept, the first concept as taught by Aristotle. Ethos is what he referred to it as. But credibility is what you need. You need to be talking high level. You need to be building that credibility by talking about the mission of your company. You can introduce maybe a few marquee clients, and you can talk more on a high level about what your company does and maybe some very broad-based research and statistics, but you do not want to sell to them. You do not want to introduce detailed stats and specifications. It will be awkward and you will embarrass yourself if you go down this path. You're looking to establish that credibility, and so do what you can to build up that trust, the credibility you have. Many times that might mean referencing third-party sources. If you're speaking maybe in front of a large group at a conference, you absolutely don't want to go too much into your product. You want to talk more on a high level, bring in either a person to help you present or reference something from a third-party journal that's neutral. Focus on building that credibility. Likewise, if you are dealing with somebody that's further along in that buyer cycle, and maybe they are in the research phase of the buyer's journey, what you need to do there is you need to work on evidence. That is the concept you should be playing with. It doesn't mean you can completely ignore credibility, no, but as you're building out your slide deck, as you're building out a theme for your presentation, you should be focused much more on that evidence. Have the stats ready, have the pie charts, have the logic. Bring in a sales engineer if you need to. Let me give you an example of a mistake that I made. It's kind of a funny story looking back. This happened about 5 years ago, and I was given a prospective lead. And I'd had a couple calls with them, and I was pretty sure they were in the awareness phase of the buyer's journey. And so when I went to China to meet with them, they were based in China. I was already there in China for some other business, but I scheduled a meeting with them and I flew up to that city to present. And I had a translator with me. And turns out I get out at the company. My cab driver drops me off and literally I see my name on the marquee. I thought, that's interesting. I walk in and I start shaking hands with a few of the executives. The CEO was there. There was even a handful of photographers were there. And I almost felt like an ambassador. I sat down and started walking through my presentation. And pretty quickly I learned that these guys were much further along in the buyer's journey than I anticipated. They asked some detailed and in-depth questions that I wasn't prepared to answer. In fact, during a quick break, I had to call up my colleague back in the United States. I got him out of bed because of the time change. And I had to ask him some questions, and he provided me a little bit of details and some stats that I could share. But in the end, the presentation did not go well. I did not win that deal. In fact, I didn't even get a chance to participate in the final RFP with these guys. And so looking back, clearly I misjudged where they were at in the buyer's journey. They were in the research phase, and had I shown up with the stats and the evidence and been prepared, I would have stood a better chance to win the deal. I didn't. I was prepared with an introductory presentation and it just didn't go too well. You need to identify where your customer is. Now, if you're dealing with somebody that's in the choice phase of the buyer's journey, how do you do that? Well, you need to pair that up with emotion. Remember, The awareness pairs with credibility. The research phase of the buyer's journey pairs with evidence. And that choice phase, if they're making a decision and it's imminent, you need to pair that with emotion. That could mean a story, but oftentimes if you're dealing with high dollar value or enterprise level sales, that usually means some sort of demonstration. Maybe it means that you're building out a software sandbox for them, and so they can try it themselves. Maybe it means that you have a product ready to go where they can even experiment on a trial version for a few days or even weeks. Maybe one of the best closes I ever had came because I flew a prospective client halfway around the world, and so they could demonstrate a product. It was a big simulator, and they were making a very important investment. Turns out I helped fly them around the world, and so they could participate in a long demonstration and really get involved and dive in and spend a day with a client of ours that already had exactly what they were looking to buy. And it was a great thing because not only did they establish and have that emotional connection with the product and they felt like they got what they needed, but they also were able to establish the relationship with me. I spent about 3 days with them. And during the time, I can tell you there was a lot of whining and dining going along. And so that emotional connection extended on a personal level. Anytime you can do that, you're absolutely going to win the deal if you can establish that personal connection and also that connection with the product or service that you're selling. So as you look at this from a high level, take a look at what audience you are presenting to. Is it a big group? Is it a small group? Identify where they are in the buyer's journey. Are they in the awareness phase? If you're presenting at a conference or to a large group, usually they're in the awareness phase. And so build that credibility. Are they in the research phase? Have your stats ready to go. And if they're in that choice phase, work on that emotional connection. Even if you're in like retail sales. I go to the store sometimes and maybe I'm buying a fragrance. They'll give a sample and they do that. And so it creates a connection there. Have a story to tell that is going to create some emotion. Car sales, have you seen this? The test drive a car. I've had car salesmen that have actually told me I can take the car home for the night. Of course I can. They want to establish that emotional connection. They want me tied to that car, and so I can't say no. So remember, pair that buyer's journey with the concepts you learn from Aristotle, the concepts of persuasion, specifically credibility, followed by evidence, and finally emotion. Do this, and your presentation is going to have really a lot of punch to it.